I have just received a package that I'm quite excited about. It is external USB storage, and the listing on Amazon looks quite suspicious. It's not impossible, but it would be like putting a lawnmower engine in a Ferrari. It doesn't seem likely. So I'm really interested to see, are there some legitimate mistakes in the listing? Is that actually what it is? Or is it a scam? And my thinking is probably it's a scam, but I'm about to find out. So why did this listing stand out to me? Firstly, the capacity versus the price is a little bit unusual. There have been some really promising advances with capacity recently, but even this was pushing it just a little bit. Yet it seemed a little bit plausible, so it could be true. There were several combinations of attributes that just didn't seem very likely. For example, it was listed as a hard disk rather than SSD, 16 terabytes over USB 2. For most use cases, 16 terabytes over USB 2 is quite painful. And then USB 2 over USB-C, it definitely happens, but it's not really what I'd expect, especially for a drive of this capacity. The speed is rated at 400 megabytes per second, while the theoretical maximum of USB 2 is 480 megabits per second, which gives you about 50 to 60 megabytes per second, which is nowhere near what they listed as 400. So all of these things could be explained by a mistake or a really weird cost-cutting choice. So it could be plausible that there could be some value there. So it seemed worthwhile to investigate. Alright, so how well did it match up? USB-C? Check. USB 2? Check. Capacity? Well, it certainly looks like it. Let's come back to this one. Speed? Not even close. The theoretical maximum for USB 2 is about 50 to 60 megabytes per second. This was lucky if it did about 1 to 2 most of the time. And then every now and then it would achieve almost the full capacity of USB 2. And that's before we take into account the operating system cache, which tends to mask that, where you get this really big burst of speed right at the beginning, the cache fills up, and then it goes to its actual speed. So is it actually 16 terabytes? Taking it at face value, it certainly looks like it. The drive reports itself as 16 terabytes, the partition layout certainly fits that, the file system stats match with that as well, and then a really slow speed basically asserts that it's going to be really time consuming and tedious to test it. So what do you do when something's slow and tedious? You automate it. I've quickly hacked together a tool which tests this, and that's available on GitHub, link in the description for that. It works by copying large amounts of data repetitively to the drive, and then provides a few mechanisms for testing that data. It can do those tests automatically, or you can manually do them when you want to probe a little deeper. My first method of testing this was actually doing checksums of everything. This is incredibly time consuming, especially on a drive of this size, but interestingly, if you list out the results while it's formatted as exFAT, you can actually see the problem much more quickly. If you're on vFAT or FAT32, it's a little bit less obvious to begin with, but once you probe a little deeper, it's still very easy to see. I recommend using the fast check to see that. Alright, so what is the problem that we're trying to detect? Essentially, under the hood, there is real storage there, and between the computer and the storage is a controller, which saves or loads the data as requested. It also reports on the drive capacity. Under normal circumstances, if the computer tried to write to an area that didn't exist, the controller would report back an error and everything would come to a stop. But this scam involves modifying the controller so that it misreports the size, and then anything beyond the capacity that's actually there, something will happen differently. There are two methods that I'm aware of handling this. One is that the data will just simply be discarded, and the other is that a new location will be chosen instead of what was requested. And then for loading the data, it could be using the same predictable but wrong location, or it might just go to a predefined location. So the drive that I have appears to be dropping all of the data into a black hole, and it appears to be just loading the data from a predefined location. I don't have complete confidence that that is the case, but it certainly looks like it from the testing that I've been doing. Go and have a look at it on here. And you can see it looks a certain way. And then if we go and have a look at the original, those two things are not the same. Unfortunately, this is actually a fairly common scam, so if I find some of those, I'll stick the links to them in the description below. So what would I like to happen? I'd like Amazon to remove the listings and to stop promoting them so furiously, and it'd be really cool if you could share this video around to anyone who may be vulnerable to this scam. I was really hoping that this one wouldn't be a scam. While a device of this capacity and speed would be really frustrating under normal circumstances for many use cases, and I also wouldn't recommend it for backups by itself, if this had actually been legitimate, This would have been an amazing tool for cheaply improving rotation-based backups. It also would have been an amazing tool for when I'm travelling to just be able to house all of the media that I have been collecting over the years. So I can do video editing on the fly without having to prep in advance with exactly which media I need for that particular trip. So to be clear, I'm really disappointed to say this drive is a scam. If you want to buy it, understand what you're getting. You're not getting 16 terabytes, it's something in the order of a few gigabytes. So let's wrap up with a few thoughts that I voiced while doing the testing. But it kind of amazes me that this scam has made it all the way to the front page of Amazon and is currently being promoted so much. That's not cool. People will fall for this. And people will lose their data. That's particularly sad, with a drive like this that's so slow to write. One of the biggest use cases for such a drive would be as a backup. And a backup is something that you need to be able to trust. And so for it to silently fail to successfully take the data and tell you that it has succeeded, but actually fail, that is such a cruel thing to be selling to people. You're taking money for causing them potentially considerable damage further down the track. That's not cool.